Hey Death, can you do me a favor and voice this video for me?
Jesus Christ, what happened to your voice? You sound like a dying
Paper shredder, I know. Just do it.
Okay, fine, just stop talking. You're hurting my audio receptors. So, of all the Warframes that are still in need of reworks and buffs, they chose to rework and buff a Warframe that can already clear an entire room in seconds. Okay, but why though? Not saying these upcoming changes for Saryn aren't great, but why is she getting attention when other Warframes are still in desperate need of changes before they fall into total obscurity? But hey, what do we know? Reaps is just some pessimistic asshole, and I'm a floating box with a gun. Anyways, let's get on with these changes. So first off, Saryn will be getting an armor buff. Regular Saryn will have 225 armor and Prime will have 300. It's ironic because they are making her more range friendly instead of melee focused, but hey, armor is armor. Next, her spores will be receiving the biggest changes. The biggest of which being that they will now have infinite duration and scaling damage. Put simply, the longer a spore is on an enemy, the more damage it will do. Another change that's going to piss off a lot of people is the damage type has been switched from viral to corrosive. This means two things. Popping a spore on something isn't going to halve the health of everything on the map anymore. But this also means map-wide armor shredding is going to be a cinch with a simple button press. Personally, I like the change better, and I'll get to why later. Enemies killed by spores will now spread them to surrounding enemies. DE isn't sure if they will keep this yet, but I think it's a must if we can only cast spores once at a time now. Recasting spores will detonate all active spores, dealing 2 times the damage on infected enemies. There will also be some performance enhancements that will help stop the ability from trying to light your computer on fire. Overall, spores will go from being the main DPS ability to more of an AoE armor debuff. What this tells me is DE is gradually trying to make corrosive projection less of a required aura mod. And honestly, I'm all for this change. The only people who are going to be severely pissed off about this are people who play Saryn exclusively like this. In other words, the usual forum white knights that get angry every time you take away their easy button. Next up is her Molt ability. Really not much happening here, except that Saryn will get a temporary speed buff when she casts it, and its health will scale based on how much damage it receives in the first few seconds it's deployed. Upon destruction it will explode, dealing toxic damage to all enemies nearby. And that's pretty much all that's happening with Molt. Next we have Toxic Lash. Put simply, it will now give a toxic buff to all active weapons. Duration has been increased from 30 seconds to 45 seconds. Melee weapons will get ×2 toxic damage in order to keep the original theme of the ability. Apparently popping spores with Toxic Lash will no longer give 2 energy to Saryn. Honestly, I had no idea that was even a thing. Although, now this is only going to add to the requirement of using the Zeneric focus school. But I digress. Finally, we have Miasma. The biggest change is that its damage has been switched from corrosive to viral. Essentially, Miasma and spores have now switched places. Aside from the damage type change, nothing else will be really different, except now it will do more damage and has increased duration. Anything afflicted with spores will take double damage. That's really all there is to Miasma. Saryn will also receive updated sound effects and will be given a voice. And that's the brunt of Saryn's rework. Expect it somewhere around later next week. And remember, absolutely all of this is subject to change. I'm looking forward to pretty much all of these changes. My only real concern is that Corpus will become kind of a issue for her. Corrosive damage does virtually nothing to shields and flesh. But aside from that, everything else is pretty much bulletproof. As I said before, I can only really see people who exclusively use Saryn like this. See this as a nerf. Spores will be a great asset for shredding enemy armor, and Miasma will go back to doing the killing. Molt will stop getting instantly destroyed, and Toxic Lash will be less useless. There you have it. So how was that?
Yeah, good job. Hopefully my voice isn't total trash by the end of the week.
Yeah. Now stop talking before you cough out a lung. He's Reaper Hunter. I'm Death Cube. Like and subscribe and all that. Stay tuned for the next video. Okay, bye.